Welcome to Shh the Talk Show Season 3. If you believe in the conversations we're trying to create here, please subscribe to our channels as that will help us get more reach. If you watch the YouTube pre-roll ads before this episode in completion, that also helps us to make a little bit of money that help us to go a long way. Our show is now available in 3 languages, so you can click on your subtitle of choice, whether it's Sinhala, Tamil or English. You can follow this conversation wherever you are in Sri Lanka. And we also welcome you to continue these taboo conversations with us on our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and also our blog posts coming out and our articles in the Sunday morning newspaper. Enjoy the show. For today's episode, I'm so happy to be at one of my favorite restaurants in Colombo, Rocco's. It's a wonderful Italian restaurant with some really great food. I would encourage you all to try out Rocco's. It's run by 2 phenomenal women who have a lovely story to how this business came about. When I was young, I started having experiences that I couldn't explain while I was schooling. Where I would feel I would feel confused. I would feel very tired all the time, even though there was no reason to feel tired. I would, for no inexplicable reason, I would have anxieties and paranoias that the world was against me. I would isolate myself. I didn't have very many friends in school because I did get along with people, but I always felt for some reason judged or criticized behind my back. I don't know why. Maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. But what I know is from the age of maybe around 15 onwards, I began feeling a lot of darkness in my life, which I couldn't explain. And I didn't really have any frame of reference or context or anyone that I felt I had the support of to even talk to. I have now understood that there is a word to explain these inexplicable feelings of sadness, of isolation and of darkness, and it's called depression. What I learned recently was that depression changes with your age and with your life circumstances. And so today we're talking about youth depression. Why is it unique? What is it that we need to understand about it? There are lots of young people in Sri Lanka today taking their lives. We don't understand why. There are lots of young people who are sort of going into throes of drama over relationship issues, over their studies, over family, parental issues, and we put it down to the youth being the youth, over emotional, oversensitive snowflakes. So I have 2 ladies who I know well and love, and who I'm very grateful for joining us on the show. This emo character over here, looking absolutely rocking, Dominic. And then we have this lady who's kind of going around and talking to people and making them feel better, who is Rasini Bandara, and Rasini is here because of her work in psychology. What is so different, or why should we be aware that the youth is more susceptible to depression than other age categories?
You kind of phrased it in a way that itself, I think it says that it's very special. But
why is it special? Like, what's going on?
It's actually not. I think probably the thing is, Shanuki, in Sri Lanka mostly, we have always grabbed things in the wrong direction, or we always have our focus in the wrong direction. So the thing is, youth, when you speak about youth, then people say, oh yeah, they're heartbeat of the society, that's like the creme of the society. So there's a lot of pressure anyway put on to youth. If you take depression, it's something that can occur throughout your life. Like if you take before pandemic, 6.3 billion children aging from 3 to 17 are going through depression and anxiety. Starting age 3. I think, very recently also I was asked whom to blame. I said there are a lot of people to blame, right? Starting from parenting. Right? I always say that, there is no particular book that says how to be a good parent for dummies or 101. But the thing is, what happens is in the society that people absolutely forget the very fundamental things. So they think, oh yeah, it's just very basic things, and you forget the basics, where the problem actually grows up to something really nasty. Parenting, then your school life, so teachers, right? And then even you were mentioning some of the things that you went through. I mean, I'm somebody who once felt suicidal as well, as an individual. So then at the same time then comes relationships. That's another whole complicated thing. It's like 2-minute noodles now. Relationships make and break very easily. And then at the same time, people have become more high tech and very less touch as individuals. We have absolutely no time for people. We might be sitting next to a person for such a long time, and then that person commits suicide, and then you are like, oh my God, I never knew that she had a problem. Oh, he had a problem. If you take situations like drugs and people trying to find substitutes and solutions for their problems, and there's no one to listen to. So there are a lot of things actually.
So it started when I was, I think I would say around 6, I guess would be like as far as I remember. And it's just been on and off periods. So it was like 6 to around 15, 16. And then it just went away. Didn't go away.
What
but
did you feel at 6? Like,
I would always feel like I would feel very alone. I would cry all the time, like inexplicably crying. I wouldn't sleep. I would just feel like it was like this, like you said, it was like this deep dark pit. And I was in this deep dark pit, and
it's like a sadness that
just
doesn't go away.
You don't know what to do with it. It's just there, and it just sometimes it's like there's absolutely nothing, and it's just So it was that. So and.
Did you have anyone to talk to at that age saying that this was going on?
I didn't even know it was like that, it was depression, or that I even had like mental health issues till I got to around 16, and I was like, okay, this is what this is, but it didn't even strike me then. It was just like, I always assumed it was that I was alone in it. That no one else was going through this, that it was just me. So I always felt like I had to put on a face and hide what I was feeling. So I would always come off as really happy and bubbly, and everyone would never think that underneath it all she's just sad all the time.
Yeah, same here, because I'd go and get involved in all sorts of extracurricular activities at school, and drama was one thing that I could really just hide behind, because I don't have to be me. And I don't have to deal with all that.
So exactly.
and then sort of, what was that aha moment? What was the moment where you realized something was wrong? And
I realized, I think like when I said like 14, 15, 16 is when I realized something was wrong, but I didn't know that there was, again, because there is not a lot of talk about it, especially because I grew up in Dubai, and it's even more shunned there than it is here. Like you are more of a social outcast there. If you even talk about your feelings, like no one really shows their feelings. It's all like stone. Like everyone is just like
perfect.
Yeah, like everyone just has this facade that they put on, in public.
And I think that's happening in Sri Lanka as well, though.
I feel like Colombo kind of has that. Yes.
With that whole influencer kind of lifestyle, you want the perfect Instagram feed, right?
Yeah. So that definitely, and so I didn't even know that that there were ways to work around this. I again thought the whole alone thing. So it wasn't until I came here that I like realized you could actually like get help and seek therapy for all of this and actually work on like getting past it. It wasn't until I moved here, and that was in 2015. So I was like 17 at the time.
Was there any specific thing that sort of triggered these episodes in you, or it just came?
So it's really funny. So when I was younger, yes, definitely. Like I had a lot of shit going on. Like I was being bullied at school. I didn't have like a good home life. At least I was being abused at home. I was being also sexually abused. So it was a lot. So definitely when I was younger, there was all of those to account for my depression and anxiety. But as I grew older, sometimes I would just get depressed for no reason. Like now my life is, I would say I'm in a much better place. But recently I went into a pretty bad, I don't know, dark pit or whatever. And there was no reason to it. I was just depressed for absolutely no reason. Nothing in my life was going bad. It was just, I was just,
Yeah.
I just had an existential crisis,
Yeah.
and I just got depressed because of it.
Yeah. Okay, so now the sexual abuse, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And did you address it though at the time, or even later? Were you able to, even within yourself, have some form of healing or forgiveness?
Yes, now I have, it took a while to get there. So it was a lot of forgiving. It was a lot of looking inwards and forgiving myself. Which is weird when you think about it. Like, why would I need to forgive myself?
Because I think, I don't know, for me also, a lot of experiences that contributed to my depression, and part of the depression was self-blame. And I think a lot of youth also, from what I see, a lot of youth go through that, because Sri Lanka, we normalize a lot of things that happen to young people, right? And we say, that's the way, or if a girl goes something, it's almost like, oh, everybody goes something. But then at the same time, because we don't talk about things like sex education, we don't talk about self-worth or self-value, so there it is a very jarring, very sort of upsetting experience that you carry with you, right? And then you think it's all your fault also.
Because I think, Shanuki, for another reason, like I said, I told you that we have always grabbed things in the wrong way, that we are again being accountable for wrong things.
Yeah.
So you're not actually accountable for the right kind of things. So we feel, oh yeah, this happens because it's our fault.
And we don't know who to talk to,
Yeah, very
especially
true.
the youth, right?
Very
Because
true.
everybody's either pointing fingers and blaming the youth, saying
Very true.
it's
Yeah.
your age,
Exactly.
or whatever. So they
Exactly.
dismiss the issues.
Very true.
And I think you want to be cool at a certain age group. You want your peers.
You wanna fit in.
You want to fit
Yeah.
in. Yeah. So you don't want to tell
It's
people
that
that you might not be
pressure,
okay
yeah.
up there, right?
Of course.
And you're I guess ashamed. There's a
Yes.
culture of shame when it
Yes.
comes to
Very
mental
true.
health.
Very true. I think even when it comes to sometimes parents also, there's something that I clearly see is that it's always like they're trying to compare their generation and this generation. That always happens. It's like what during our time we never had things like that. During our time we used to always play outside. I mean, yes, during your time, yes, but it's not happening now. The society is different. The children are different. They have a different heartbeat now. It's not
Yeah.
like what you used to have.
And when you say "Owa ganan ganne epa," it's like you're dismissing, right?
Very true. Because they, true, Shanuki, I mean, I would say that during my time as a child, I've also seen, children going through difficulties in life, but then no one ever came out saying, what, I'm going through this. But maybe it could be also the fact that you had a lot of support system as well. I mean, in terms of friends, I would say friendships were more solid during my time. I don't like to usually do that comparison, but I would say yes. So people, because they had very less distractions and diversions, they were genuinely interested in people and relationships.
I remember once mentioning to my mom or my dad, I can't remember, that I was depressed, and her response is, "What? You're a 16-year-old. What do you have to be depressed about? Like, what? Your life, you have nothing going on. I should be depressed. I have bills to pay. I have to go to work. I'm dealing with shit." And I was just like, okay, that makes thank
I think
you.
that's like a lot of parents do that,
Every
right?
parents,
Without
yeah,
realizing.
yeah. But yeah, so I didn't, back in Dubai, I didn't have a support system,
Yeah.
and then moving here, I found that people are more real. So then I did find I had a support system, and it's just.
And did you seek help?
I did.
Okay.
So I'm currently also going to so Shanti Magam does counseling, so I would definitely do have sessions with one of the therapists.
How's that process for you?
It's really good.
Okay.
After I'm done, I feel so relieved, and the like the advice or the things, the pointers that my therapist makes is like are very helpful, you know, and I definitely try to like apply them to my life and work around whatever I can. So it's been really good. Yeah.
But not a lot of young people seek help also, right? Even though we're talking about it
a lot
out
of
there in the
stigma
media.
around it.
Like, why is it that they're not willing to seek help? Because I know, okay, now lately in Sri Lanka, we talk about mental health a little more, and, you know, counseling places like Sumitrio, Shanti Magam, we talk about, okay, if you're feeling suicidal, if you're feeling depressed, come forward and all that, but they don't. Why is that? Is there a reason that
Again, I would say, Shanuki, there's still the stigma is there.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, something that I really quite see nowadays is that there's a lot of labeling happening. Right? You know, for example, like even let's say somebody's a little sad and then you are ready to put the label depressed.
Yeah.
But you are not. I always say this.
It's like a trending word,
It's,
right?
yeah,
Exactly.
people do like to make it a thing now, and like, you know.
Then it's like
think
more of like
also-
hashtag depression.
Yeah, also, I'm not taking away from their experiences, but I think it started when you start looking at celebrities, Hollywood celebrities and all that, and in a way the media glamorizes depression that they go through. They may have struggled, but they talk about their struggles, but then there's a glamour factor to
Yeah,
it
they
now.
romanticize it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that then it becomes like a cool thing.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Why
people
would it be
think,
cool?
oh, yeah, when somebody says, "Oh, yeah, I'm depressed," so then you need to be depressed to belong to a certain like group. And if you know, if you are not depressed, then you are not qualified to be a teenager or youth. So that is what again I see that, you know, even when it comes to school children also, Shanuki, I always see it like, you know, if a child is a little more active, then the teacher says, "Oh, that child ADHD." Like that labeling is always there. Like, you know little bit about it, right? And then a lot of glamour and a lot of sugar coating about that situation, and then you think, oh yeah, you have the credibility to pass judgments on people like that. So imagine like you put a label onto someone, and after some time they even themselves might feel, you know what, maybe actually I'm going through this, but you're not. I have these young girls and boys calling up and saying, you know what, Miss, sometimes, I can't sleep. And I said, common thing, I also can't sleep sometimes. And I feel sad. I said, I also feel sad. It's a very natural thing to feel. And he said, sometimes I don't have appetite. I said, same here. It happens to people. I mean, I always say that depression and anxiety and all these things, Shanuki, they're actually a process. It's not that some incident happens to you and then next day you will be depressed or you'll develop anxiety. Over a period of time, not getting enough support, not having anyone to talk to, right? And knowing the fact that people do not understand you the way you want them to understand you can actually lead to depression. It's just that, stress not dealt with goes there.
Did you ever, when you sort of started talking about the fact that you were depressed and all, did you ever have any form of critique or backlash, or did you ever feel judged for it?
Personally, like at least in that aspect, because I have a very good support of friends, so I never felt judged, but I do know it definitely happens.
Yeah.
And like personally within myself, when I first came here and I realized that there was therapy and stuff, and I was a little like hesitant to go. Like I'd internalize that I was weak, or that stigma does exist, and I like, even though I know it isn't now, at least, like back then I would be like, no, I can deal with it on my own, I've dealt with it all this time, I can do it.
And I still feel like that, right?
Yeah, sometimes I still feel like that.
Yeah, it's like, no, I mean, I do mental health advocacy, I know everything.
Yeah, I know. It happens. I think it happens to all of us, actually.
But then it's also good, like what I realized is that you don't even have to be depressed to go to therapy. It's just, you can go to therapy if you don't have any problems. It's always nice to talk to somebody and have somebody understand you, and even if you're not going through stuff, that's what I realized, like therapy you don't have to go to therapy if you're if you're not okay, you know.
Yeah.
So
Is therapy expensive though for young people because
Yes.
they're not earning
Right.
and this and that, and is that an expensive process?
Well, I would say, Shanuki, like most of my time, true. Now, there is money involved in it as well as I do. But then at the same time, I work a lot with uni students, work a lot with school children. So I have actually given them the avenue to reach out to me whenever they want to reach out to me. And sometimes, Shanuki, it's just a matter of 1 minute with these young ones. Just a matter of 1 minute, and they'll feel so good after that 1 minute.
Yeah.
Because there's always like a very deciding time, that I want to do this, I don't want to do this, and then at that point only somebody needs to be there for you. Somebody who will unconditionally, with unconditional positive regard, would look at you.
Yeah. And that can't be parents, is it?
Most of the time, I would say parents can, Shanuki,
But
but
they don't know.
parents are not choosing to do it. I mean, see, sometimes, at home, there are certain times that I get emotional, I get overwhelmed. Of course, I'm very human. And then, but I never think twice to actually cry in front of my kids. So they will also understand the fact, what, it's okay, she's also messed up sometimes, it's fine that I'm messed up too. And I always tell this to parents, have that transparency with kids, even when you're going
But
through
they don't
this.
do that in Sri Lanka, right? Because they're
That's
like,
the thing. They
parents
want
in Sri Lanka are
to
like,
superheroes. Like they just try to fabricate that thing. Just like you have inferiorities, but then you try to fabricate a superiority thing, saying we have everything taken care. We have everything under control, but which is not. Also, let's say a child needs to address a certain problem. They go to their parents. The way they react will decide the fact that they are going to come back to the parents or not.
when you sort of realized you had depression, when you started going for therapy, have you had to sort of adjust yourself in any way where you felt like, I would say, over therapized sometimes, like where everything, I wonder sometimes right now after I learned about what was going on with me and after I became more aware of mental health stuff and all that, now everything I do I'm like second guessing, am I going through this, and then it becomes a stress point, right? Like, does that happen to you? Do you start second guessing? And
okay, so that hasn't happened to me. What I'm not sure that has happened to me. Maybe. Now I'm wondering.
now let me think about it. Thank you, Shanti.
But no, I don't think that's happened to me. But I do end up like getting too deep. Like I end up like analyzing myself a lot and like looking inwards a lot, just self-reflection and stuff. And it definitely gets to a point where it's too much, where I do it too much, and I end up sabotaging things for me by like picking at things that like are minuscule.
Over-analyzing kind of
they're minuscule, but I'm picking at them because I want to like better myself, or I'm finding things that they're minuscule, but I end up making it worse for myself is something that I've realized I do a lot. So maybe
okay. So then my question to you, out of experience and you from the youth that you work with, this age of youth, sex, drugs, alcohol, rock and roll, the go-to solutions to escape. That's been a part of your world.
Yeah,
on how you
definitely.
dealt, right?
I mean, so I definitely like, I know that if I was to go down that route, it would be really bad. So whenever I'm feeling, whenever I get into a dark place, I make sure to stay away from drugs or...
But did you ever use to try and sort of...
I know
deal with
people who
depression?
have, but I personally know that it would make things worse. Like, I don't want to go down that pit. Because I don't want to get addicted also or whatever. Like I don't want to ruin, like I know those are distractions and I don't want to distract myself from it. I want to move on, and distracting will only like make everything worse for me towards the it's just pent up. I'm just holding everything in, so I end up dealing with it right then and there. But I know like people definitely do and
But I think a lot of kids do that.
Yeah,
right?
they
it's
do.
Like, what are you sad about? Come, Machan, put a shot. Or lots of kids, especially, they kind of escape whatever shit is going on in their heads, and it'll be sex,
Yeah.
maybe even like casual
Lot of
promiscuity,
distractions.
drugs, drink, the whole, what are the dangers there? I think young people need to know.
Yeah, true. Because the thing is, Shanuki, it's more like, you have a wound in your body and then you put like a very nice plaster on top and pretend that it's fine. Right? So it's like, because, see, the thing is, in my time as a therapist, I've also worked with people in Kandakadu and Senapura who are actually going through drug rehabilitation and treatment. And there everybody have had a very humble start, right? Friends saying, what, it's okay, she broke your heart, you just have this, your problem will be over. But problems don't get over like that unless you bring the problem in front of you and you deal with it.
Exactly.
So you are just trying to find, okay, so you consume drugs, right? And then you think, okay, for that time it's over, you're not thinking about it, you're in a different world. But next day when you wake up, your problem still exists.
Yeah.
And then you need another
Dose.
shot or another dose for you to be better that day. So you get through with that day also. And then it doesn't stop because you're not choosing to deal with your problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are the youth, and when I say youth, you're talking about this age category of, say, maybe teenagers or
Yeah.
adolescents from 12, but you're going up to about 30, right?
Yeah.
Are they mentally, do they have the coping and resilience ability to deal?
I would say they are pretty much impulsive in nature, and because there are a lot of hormonal changes happening, a lot of decisions you have to make, you're constantly in the struggle of finding who am I and what am I doing here, what is my purpose in life. All those crises are happening. You still do not have the maturity to actually understand things in a better way. I would say, Shanuki, when I was 18 and losing my father 18 years old, how I dealt with it will not be the same way that I'll deal with the situation right now. So when my mother's passing happened when I was 30 plus, then I was like, I would say I was better adjusted to it. I understood things better. I knew that it was a part of life. I would say I'm somebody who matured with circumstances, not matured with age.
Yeah.
Right? So then yes, so that is a very critical time in your life. I would say that the teenage time and then up to early adulthood and all that, it's a lot of decisions happening, relationships are happening, and you're
And
entering-
studies, I think
exactly.
parents tend, or society tends to put a huge amount of pressure
Yeah.
on kids with
and
education.
also the
right?
social, the biological
The
clock is ticking and all
expectations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we need to realize that a lot of these suicide numbers and the mental health issues are correlated.
Very true, very true. Because there's always a starting point somewhere. It starts from very younger days, and how parents pretty much empower you to solve your problems. How they tell you, okay, this is how you should deal with it, and this is how you should look at yourself. Society matters. Don't make these kind of decisions because what will the society think? So you are actually empowering your children with the idea that more than your happiness, what the society's perspective of you is what matters.
Yeah.
Right? And then you are in that constant struggle of making the society happy and thinking, oh, you know what, I should not do this, I should do what the society wants me to do. So that is again another big concern.
So that weight of
Yeah.
sort of expectations that you have to fulfill. I think studies is a big one because a lot of, with O levels and
Very
A
true.
levels and all that, when you have fails or you're not like rising above everyone else, and you have a lot
There's a
of
lot of
young
comparisons.
people going
Very
into
true.
depression, spiraling into this.
Very true. And Shanuki, a lot of people go into depression because they are not letting themselves live their life the way they want to live. I have a lot of boys and girls coming and they're telling me that what, I love to do this, I have this particular sexual preference, this is my orientation, but I can't come out of it. I can't just, go and tell it to my parents, and I want to fabricate this different kind of a lifestyle and live. And don't you think that, anyone deserves to be happy? I would say that's fundamental. Your happiness matters, and then you are trying to live up to a societal expected version of you is making you depressed, and that's unforgivable. I would say that is something you should not forgive. I mean, you should definitely let yourself be happy, right? And
What about boys? Now you said girls and boys, but boys we need to talk about this because I
the
think young
expectation
girls,
for boys is much higher.
and young girls find it easier to talk,
because
right?
women are expected to
Express.
they are softer, they're
and
Drama
they'll
queens.
express, they'll cry.
it's a qualification.
Yeah.
I would say if you're not sensitive, you're not qualified to be a woman.
yeah, right.
I always had a problem with that, and I think actually some of my depression was that also because I grew up with boys, or my cousins and my brother and all that, right? And in school, I was a tomboy, and I had this thing of it's not cool to be a girl. It's like girls are super stupid.
Same.
Right? Now
Now,
it's
yeah.
a different shift of perspective. But this thing of not wanting to cry in front of people, wanting to be tough, wanting to be that, and then at the same time internally not being able to hold it
everything,
together, it confuses you. It
Very
makes you angry. It makes you.
I mean, of course, because the thing is, very recently, Shanuki, I was at a therapy session with this boy who's close to 30, and at a point he just couldn't hold it up. I mean, he started screaming and crying. So I was just watching, and then after some time, I think he got really embarrassed, and he was like, what he said was, "Mage ganu gati wadi." And I said, "Ganu gati kya You say manusa gati." Because you demonstrating your emotions, you embracing your emotions will not make you less of a man or more of a woman. Right? It will only establish one thing, that you are human. Right? Humans, we experience these things. I mean, very recently, in any platform that I get to speak about this, I always speak about it, Shanuki, that I have a lot of respect for men who actually display their emotions, embrace their emotions and say that, I'm upset, I'm sad, I'm angry, right? I'm devastated. It's fine to say that. It's perfectly all right to say that, because, pain truly reveals the best in you. In a boys' school recently, I told, mothers, what? When your child is crying, you say, don't cry like a girl. Na? And then later on, when you get into a marriage, and then you say that, I'm with a heartless man. This man has no sensitivity, no
everything.
emotions. Exactly. So you are actually giving birth to that.
I know that I have a form of high functioning depression, for instance. No, like you said, I can smile. I'm super competitive with myself, so I keep achieving and doing all sorts of things and getting involved in all sorts. I'm escaping from myself, but everybody thinks, oh, Shanuki's got it
She's
really
fine.
good.
She's got it together.
She's tough. She can do all this shit and all that, right? But it's not. It's a case of if I'm not doing something, I'm like suicidal sometimes. So I have to be doing something. How do you know that you're depressed and not just sad? Or how do you know that you're like?
I personally, for myself, I think that, or at least how I would see it is that if those periods of darkness were to last longer than like a week or two, right? When it's just stretching and you don't seem to come out of it, you would know, but that I think that would classify right as depressed rather than sad. Okay. So when you go through those periods, and that's how I also knew that it wasn't just that, it was just like, it just felt like doomsday. It was doomsday all day, every
I've
day.
had doom in my head for a long time, and I cover the doom so nobody knows that I'm actually plotting to either kill myself or kill somebody out there.
No, Dominic is pretty much spot on in that, because the thing is now, for example, sad, yes, you can get sad throughout the day, bits and pieces here and there. But then if you are continuously sad, now it's happening for weeks and weeks.
But is it just sadness? Are there any other symptoms?
Yeah, you are very much in self-doubt, I would say, Shanuki, you always question, like, and you're always, I would say, you have a lot of negative self-talk happening as well. So whatever you do, you'll be always talking negative about it. And then there's a lot of fatigue, right? And you can't, sometimes, you know, it's like you can't even get out of the bed,
Yeah.
right? And you absolutely see no purpose in life. That is another thing. No matter how much you try, you just do not see it at all.
Yeah.
Right? And then you don't feel like absolutely mingling with people, talking with people. Even you see somebody smiling, that might irritate you.
Yeah.
So it's always not sad. It can be anger as well. Right? So
Loss
that is
of appetite.
very, very true. I mean, at the same time, you might lose weight even without dieting or anything, or you might even overeat.
Yeah.
You have suicidal thoughts as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that, you know, you might talk about it a lot. You might start talking about death, and you might think that that's the easy way out. You might not do it, but you'll keep on talking about it. Also, it will come to a point that you'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
When it
that
gets
is
too much, yeah.
That's what I say.
And a lot of young people, even though they're very socially active and all that, if you're suicidal, you don't necessarily talk to anyone about it because you don't feel, even your closest friend, you don't want to.
You don't want to stress
I
them
know
out.
for a fact that when you are actually suicidal, you don't want to tell
Yeah.
anyone. It's when you feel like you don't want to die and you want the help that you will reach out, but somebody who's made up their mind won't tell
Yeah,
anyone.
like
So, have you tried to take your life? Have you?
I've definitely got to that point where I wanted to, but personally for myself, I always had this thing where it's really weird. Well, I don't deserve to die. I deserve to suffer through life. Like death seems too easy. Like I deserve all the shit that comes to me. I don't know why, but I grew up with that, and it's taken a long time for me. Even sometimes now, even when I'm feeling like super suicidal, I'll just be like, no, you kind of deserve to go through this. And I don't know why I have that, but that happens. So
And this is the thing right now, for anybody who knows you from the outside, you're bubbly, you're
Yeah.
vivacious, you're positive, you always come across as a ray of sunshine, and you wouldn't say that this is someone who wants to take her life,
yeah, no,
right?
no one would
Or
think
wants
that.
to suffer,
Yeah.
right?
Which is also why one of the things where I kind of like struggle telling or talking to people about it, because a lot of people assume that I am like this, and so when I feel like I don't have the voice to say that, oh, I also get sad, like the whole toxic positivity thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Toxic positivity. What are the dangers there?
yeah, it's just difficult to open up because everyone sees me as this way, and so sometimes I feel like when I talk about my bad days or my depression and stuff, I'm like, oh my god, people are like, oh my god, this girl. I feel like that. Maybe
Feel like
you
that
feel
too.
that too,
I do.
It's
And
like, oh, I have to be positive all the time, and I hate
Yeah.
it, man.
Man,
You know?
I feel like, okay, I've only recently started talking about
Same.
my mental health, right? Because you have that public profile and that image, and even when you're young, you're trying to make it, you're trying to be popular, you know, and you're trying to be impenetrable in a way, so that now I have this imposter syndrome in me that if I talk about it, it helps me
Yeah.
to say it out loud, but
yeah.
I also feel like I'm joining that army of influencers who are trying to use depression as a
yeah.
glamorous thing to,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't want to do that also because it's too big a deal to just be that dismissive of it.
You know, whenever that I have youth or kids, you know, talking about it, I always try to tell them and make them understand that, you know, this always happens because you not having a purpose in life. We have goals, right? You know, kids, if you take, I want to pass my O-levels, I want to pass my A-levels, I want to get to university, right? And then do a job. And it stops there.
But
Right?
don't you think, Rasini, if they are not able to achieve the purpose, for instance, if they have said, this is my purpose, and if they are not able to get there, then again that will cause depression.
Well, that again, like, it's all about how you actually have that purpose happening in your life as well. For example, I would say, Shanuki, I'm not telling people to have that kind of a purpose in life. Now, for me, a lot of people ask me, you know, Rasan, you don't get tired. You work and work and work, you know, day and night. But then again, you're with the same energy. How do you do that? I said, you know what? I feel for me, it's more like I'm earning merits for my parents. that is my purpose. So I'm never tired, right? Through the work I do, by connecting to people, it's not just a job for me, right? It's something else.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that I lack. Of course, I have that.
What is your why? What is your reason for being? And I think a lot of young people don't explore that, right?
Exactly.
Why am I alive?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, I would say, like, every day when I wake up, I feel like, okay, it's another day that I get to connect with my parents. I mean, that is like a massive, I would say, a dark pit that I have in my life. Now, that void I cannot fill. You know, losing my father at such a young age, like I told you that I was suicidal. I wanted to just get crushed by a car, but then I had responsibility of my mother, and I couldn't even do that. I couldn't even end my life, right? Because of the fact that I felt that I'm responsible. I have to take care of her because she was in a very, I would say, in terms of health, she was not in a very good place. And then all what my relatives and everyone around me told me was that you have to be strong. Nobody told me it's all right to be weak.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, I thought, you know what, all that went wrong for me, then I can absolutely use that now. So I tell people, be weak. It's okay. You cry for days, that's fine.
It's human.
It's human. I mean, if you know, the worst thing to tell somebody who lost a mother or a father is to tell, be strong. Or anybody, or even a dog. Right? Because that matters to you. Right? You can't measure somebody else's life with the same measurements that you do onto yours.
And I think
very
it's important for kids also to know that with each other, peer groups and all that. Sometimes we tend to tell other people, I think it's toxic when, as friends, with the best of intentions, we tell our friends who might be going through depression about how we would deal with it. You know, and you tell them, you know, cheer up, or
Yeah.
this will pass, or,
Exactly.
you know, and sometimes we tell them, okay, do this, do that. So rather than, I think it's
the
important
worst.
even for parents to know, right? Don't
Yeah.
try to fix
Yeah.
the issue, just be there.
Like what enables the whole toxic positivity thing is that people will ask you how you are, but they don't genuinely want to know how you're doing. They're just looking for just to make conversation. If people were to empathize and understand and like have real connections, I feel like as a whole, as a society, our whole this mental health would be so much easier, because everyone, at least almost everyone, goes through something, but that, because we have to be stoic and not talk about it, that also adds, that whole pressure adds to it, you know. And like I've had conversations with people, like they ask me how I am, and I start telling them like, oh, I'm not doing okay, and they're like, oh yeah, so what about work? And I'm just like, then why did you ask me how I am? If you don't want me to give you an honest response.
Because I think people just don't know how to deal, so they tend to quickly distract and go into another subject, or you know, like let's move on.
But I found that people like that, when they ask me how I am, and I'm able to tell them like, okay, I'm not okay, and then they actually listen. Like they didn't have to offer me advice. It's just nice to know that somebody is empathizing and understanding. And once I feel that they are, I'm just like, okay, I feel better. You know, like I wish more people did that. Like they genuinely want. Like you just have to listen. You don't have to. You know, maybe tell me something about yourself too. Like real conversations and connections.
What are the things that young people can do for themselves to actually maybe help themselves? How can you support yourself if you think you're going through depression?
I would say that I always tell this, that write about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Right?
going to say journal.
Write about it.
Do you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, write. Whatever that comes to
helpful.
your mind, just write it. I mean, it's something that I did as well, because at a point, Shanuki, I also understood the fact that, you know, maybe there's nobody for me. Nobody would understand. You know, when my father passed away, I thought that everyone, you know, even the slightest vision of somebody with their parents would really put me off. And then I would just write about it. And that was indeed therapy for me. You know, I even tell nowadays, you know, don't type, do not text, right? But just write.
Okay.
Everything that
But
comes
some
to
people
me.
might not be good at writing, so I'm guessing art, any form of art is also good therapy. right?
Anything.
Like just
Anything.
paint it out
Just
with
get
colors
it out,
or
yeah.
sing it out, act it out. I do that.
Dance it off.
Dance it off.
Dancing
Whatever
also
it is.
really helps.
Absolutely. I mean,
Endorphins, no?
I do that as well. I mean, whenever that I've had a long day of therapy, one back to back, and then I would just go and, like go to my dancing class. Somehow I will make it and do that. And even, like watch something, for me, movies, that's like my dose of
Self-care.
The music that
Yeah.
you like, positive music
Yeah.
though, right? Not
No,
even
so
more
sad
depressing.
music actually sometimes does help. I've heard.
But if you're already going through sadness, listening to sad music is like doom.
No, so like I've actually talked to a few people, and sad music has actually helped them because it puts into words what you are feeling.
Okay.
Like, and so you actually end up, you feel like, oh, I feel understood, and so you feel better afterwards.
Okay,
Which,
okay.
at least personally for me, also
Right,
that does
okay.
happen. When I'm sad, I actually listen to sad music.
So I
write it out,
dance,
get it out.
Yeah, even as a young person, like when I used to have these episodes, I used to dance under not.
Do that.
Actually, that's another thing, Shanuki. Like now, usually when you are going through a struggle in life, we would usually turn towards art, right? I mean, that then art is what actually gives you
Expression.
that discipline also. I mean, the thing is, Shanuki, sometimes we say embrace the beautiful mess you are, but that doesn't mean you don't take a shower, you eat whatever you want and all that. But then, it's good that you take care of your body. It's good that you put good stuff into your body. It's good that you work out, because I would say working out also really helps you.
Maybe not just gym, but just having a
Just
small
moving,
walk, getting out into nature.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, people always like bring in excuses saying, what, gyms are closed, it's not pretty safe to
5-10
go
minute
there.
walk
But
is more than enough.
Absolutely.
Some sunshine,
Yeah.
more than enough
Very true.
usually.
And just sometimes, I always say, even for me, sometimes a quick getaway, a few minutes to yourself in a different location. I mean, take a train and go somewhere, right? I mean, not really
If your
possible
mother
now.
comes after you with a broom, that's a different thing. Right? But I would actually tell young people, if you're able to, obviously not everybody is, but a pet.
Oh yes.
Pets
Are very
actually are
helpful.
huge therapists.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially
I mean,
for depression and anxiety
Yeah.
and things like that.
very true. We often say, like, even staring at some fish, that's therapy.
I don't know.
It is I will agree, because it's very calming to watch them swim, right?
Talk to me.
Maybe if you have like anxiety, that wouldn't help, and you're fidgety.
But I know there's
move.
there is science behind this, because I know for a fact, okay, I have cats, and because I'm a cat lover, I've learned this, that cats actually purr. The vibration frequency of a cat's purr is actually something that scientifically calms your.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it calms your
Ah.
system down. That vibrational frequency, it kind of matches the human,
Feels
the
confident.
whatever vibration your energy needs to be at to be in a calm space. So how cool is nature like that, right? And then of course dogs, if you have a dog.
Seeing how happy a dog is, it just puts me in a good mood.
Yeah. So if you can, pets are really great for young people.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that
Yeah.
I have a cat at home who's like constantly my companion, even late night when I'm working. It's just always there.
And I think it's also a sense of responsibility that maybe you're not married, you don't have kids because you're young, but that feeling of there's someone in your life that you have a reason to wake up the next day. Right, and it does. At least pets have been a huge help for me.
Absolutely.
And I want to bring up like the point that like I feel like as a society, why the whole depression thing is really difficult is because technology has made things so fast paced that we don't take things like we don't take the time to appreciate the little things or take the time to just live life one day at a time.
Very
true. If you like, that's something I've coming to the realization recently, that if I take the time like to live like I feel like there's always a pressure to do something, get somewhere, but if you decide like I mean, life is long, like 70, 80 years we live and I'm only 22, man. Like, that's a long time. Like, take it one day at a time. It's going to come. It's going to come. We put so much pressure on ourselves to just get somewhere, Yeah.
People basically forget to live the moment. That's
Yeah.
something I always say.
Yes.
I'm learning from Kung Fu Panda. Yesterday's history you can't change it, and people are like, oh, why did I make this decision? Why did I do it? Why? Now you can't change.
You
It's
can't
already
change it, just
happened.
live with it.
Tomorrow is a
Yeah.
mystery. You know, you never know. I mean, many
Just take
people
it
who
as
were
it
breathing
is.
yesterday are not breathing today. That's why I always say, do any of us have a guarantee that we are going to live tomorrow?
Yeah.
No, we don't. And then we forget to live the moment.
Yeah.
Like the very little things we miss out in life.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And-
sounds silly, and like if somebody had told me this like a few years ago when I was depressed, I would just be like, oh my God, can you shut the fuck up? You know, and just be like, that's not it, man. But really, like taking the time to just like take things slowly, realize that, take things one day at a time, appreciate the little things, like let's say like you like spending time with your pets. Okay, there's something to be appreciative for, and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I tell my clients, you know, most of the time, every day, like send me a picture or something.
That makes you
what
happy.
you are, yeah, exactly. That brought a smile to your face. It could be a book, it could be a plant, it could be anything, right?
Write
it could
it
be even
down.
avoiding someone who you didn't. That's fine. Every day, make sure you journal that one thing.
Yeah.
One thing is enough.
Actually, that's amazing that you said that, because that's something that works for me as well, and I know it works for a lot of other people that I've suggested it to. I took this thing called the 100 Happy Days Challenge.
I
right?
remember that.
Yeah, and I do that periodically as well, where if you're feeling down, and this is something you can do for yourself, if you're feeling down, challenge yourself that for 100 days you document, whether it's on your Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you take a picture or you write about it, document one thing that makes you happy that day, right? It can be a tiny little thing like bird song, or it can be a massive thing like meeting friends and, you know, having a party. But you kind of train your brain to look for positivity every day. And if you're going through a really dark time, it can be a struggle at the very beginning. Those first few days can be a struggle to see positivity. But if you challenge yourself, then little by little by little, you start looking for it. And little by little by little, your brain starts automatically recognizing the positivity around you. And at least temporarily, it does help. It does help with a lot of darkness. That's worked for me. And I know that young people don't like to talk about it. We've all been there, but I think if you don't want to necessarily talk to somebody, if you're not comfortable with that, then there is now the ability for you to text about it, because the 1926 mental health hotline, the National Mental Health Hotline, is there with volunteers who listen to you, who know how to deal with it. And it's not just a hotline that you need to pick up a phone and speak. If you feel better anonymously just texting out your feelings to someone, then you can do that as well. So I think that's a really good service that we have, that especially for the youth who are text heavy
Text
kind
savvy,
of thing.
yeah.
At least be able to put it out there. You don't have to tell people who you are, and you know that there's a friend, there's someone there in your corner who knows what you're going through.
Yeah.
There are nothing in this world that there are limitations, right? There's only perceived limitations, the way you look at things.
Yeah.
So it's always, even every problem, and why sometimes, you know, if you take a situation like somebody getting diagnosed with cancer, and then someone surviving and someone not, it's also the way you look at it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's this, since I said that I'm a big movie buff, there's this one beautiful learning I learned from Evan Almighty. So God comes and asks Evans' wife, if God wanted to give you courage, would God give you courage or an opportunity to develop courage? So every challenge that comes your way, it's actually demanding a better version of you, right? Making you develop certain skills, maybe develop endurance, develop courage, or anything. So look at life in such a way.
Another thing is, like, it's always good to be reminded that at whatever age you are at, nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. No one has their shit together. They're all just figuring it out. You have to be reminded that life, it's just an experience you go through and you grow. Like, because personally for myself, like, I've had my fair share of shit, but then when I look back at who I was and where I am now, I'm like, I have grown through every single situation. Like you were saying, like, I have definitely made it up the ladder, but now it may not feel like it. Like when I'm depressed and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through this. But when I actually look back, I'm like, I'm proud of the person I've become. Like, I actually do grow, but we don't take the time to also think about that. So treating life as an experience, and like no one knows what they're doing. just do it. Just go with the flow. We have a long life, you know.
Your struggles are valid. What you're going through, even if you feel like nobody gets it, even if you feel like it might be your fault, if you might feel bad about what you're going through, it doesn't matter. It is valid. You're feeling what you're feeling, and you're feeling it because you're human, and that's okay.
You know, something that you have to think is that, you know, if you feel like you don't have a purpose in life, but you can think that what you're going through in life is going to be someone else's survival guide tomorrow. So you do have a purpose in life.
During times like this, I think it's important to actually dive into the depth of the like youth and depression topic, and to see like what this is really about and how we can deal with this in a more effective way, and what are the professional help out there. So most of the times when it comes to youth and depression, what happens usually is people end up isolating the victim, and on the other hand, some people, like most of the people, don't know how to deal with people with this issue. Like they don't know how to address it. They don't know how to talk to their friends, like address it properly and like help out their friends. So they might even end up giving the wrong advice. So if you see the episode, you might get an understanding how you can deal with it, how you can identify if one of your friends are going through this, and how you can effectively help out your friend actually.